This is Toledo Symphony Lab, a behind-the-scenes look at the world of classical music from WGTE Public Media and your Toledo Symphony. I'm Brad Cresswell, and joining me today in the studio are the Toledo Symphony's principal second violin and artistic administrator, Merwin Sue. We also have our friend Mickey Emsch, who is ensemble sales and operations manager for the Toledo Symphony. And on the phone, we have a very special guest. I do have a fanfare for you. That is the fantastic tenor, Zach Borichevsky. Zach, you're on the line with us, yeah?
I'm still here. Hi, how you doing?
So that is your fanfare. You know, that's going to accompany you every time you walk on any stage anywhere.
I'm sorry to cut in before we talk about anything, but the most perfect possible fanfare intro for this particular concert, I think, would be the few bars right before the Vittoria moment in Tosca, because I think that's the greatest lead up to a tenor high note moment of all of opera. And,
no, I'll sing it for you. Da 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 Vittoria.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Okay, well, just pretend that was your fanfare instead.
That's my favorite.
I think it's the first time we've had a guest critique your choice of fanfare, Brad.
It's a new button to add, too.
I mean, well, you brought in all these musicians here into the studio, and he just shot it all down.
Oh, well, there we go.
I wouldn't dare say that it was inferior. I just, because we're happen to be doing an excerpt from Tosca on this concert, it would have really been in the same vein.
Well, unfortunately, there is copyright, so we have to be careful about what music we can and can't play, and so the fanfares are royalty-free, or at least we pay for them. We license them, but I couldn't get a specific recording of the Vittoria.
Obviously.
Out of curiosity, who would be your favorite tenor or the greatest Vittoria?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty partial to Corelli. Part of it is the audience reaction, though, which is the thing that I really miss about different. I mean, you don't miss. There's different kinds of opera consumption. I think in the olden days, in the 19th century, even early 20th century, mid 20th century, by the time Corelli's singing, there's still in opera a similar fan base as in sports, because sports hadn't taken over every element of sort of the popular cultural entertainment thing to do. And so the people that are there in sporting events cheering like crazy were at the opera instead. And so when some magnificent athletic feat was accomplished, they cheered like a magnificent athletic feat had been accomplished in a sporting event.
Yeah. And
it was exciting. And you can find on YouTube plenty of recordings of Corelli singing that moment of Tosca, and being the next 3 minutes of the opera being drowned out by raucous cheers. And that's fun. And so I'm partial to Corelli for that reason.
Yeah. Also the fact that he had an amazing voice, and that name is going to come up again a little bit later in the program.
That's why he got those cheers, of course.
Yeah. Well, the reason that we're talking to you, Zach, is because you're coming back to Toledo. This is for a concert of Giacomo Puccini's Messa di Gloria, also starring you singing some arias from the Puccini cinematic universe. We're going to hear from... It's happening Sunday, March 26th at 4 o'clock p.m. This is at Rosary Cathedral, which is a great space to sing in. And Giordano Bellincampi is conducting the concert. You can find more information at 419-246-8000. That's the box office number. You can also go online to their website at ToledoSymphony.com. Now, Zach, I've talked with you before on FM 91, but we haven't done an episode of Toledo Symphony Lab. So, in keeping with what we always do when we have a special guest, we get you to tell your story. And this can be anything that, we use to get to know you a little bit better. So you can take us back as far as you want, and let me get some music for you here. So that can kind of set the tone, right? Let's hear Zach's story.
This is the mood for...
Yeah.
My story has to be in this kind of mood, all right.
You went Vittoria for this also?
There was a boy who was born. But, no, I was, I started out in singing when I was just 14 or 15 years old. It was my first professional training in singing. So I started singing in church before being professionally trained. Then I happened to find a really great voice teacher, and that got me into the singing business in the suburbs of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania. And, I mean, the business eventually, into the pursuit of singing classically, and just figuring out how to make those same sounds that Andrea Bocelli, who I was very much into as a 12-year-old, and then very soon after Pavarotti, who continues to dominate my appreciation for. I mean, he's in my mind still the one I go to listen to. He's like the gold standard to me. I appreciate all different colors and flavors of tenors at different times for different repertoires. But if there's has to be one name, it's got to be Pav for me. And he's the one who I really was into when I was in those teenage years. And anyway, I went on from my high school voice training with a very great voice teacher in the suburbs of Philadelphia. His name's Neil Tracy. And then I went to undergrad in D.C. I went to the Yale School of Music for graduate school. And I went to the Academy of Vocal Arts in Philadelphia after that. And to bookend my musical education experience with the two very big influences, my first voice teacher, Neil Tracy, who I still see on occasion, and the maestro Christopher Makatsouris at AVA, who I still have a chance to go and work with on occasion. Katie and I, my wife, Catherine Lewick, we got a chance to work through Traviata with him before we came to Toledo to do it last year.
That's wonderful.
So,
Any mention of Toledo gets a cheer, right? Let me ask you a question, Zach. I'm curious. You talk about some of the tenors that were your role models, Pavarotti being the chief among them. Before you knew you were a tenor, were you interested in tenors, or was that precipitated by like your teacher telling you, hey, you're going to be a great tenor?
Well, it was kind of all at once. I mean, I never really thought I was anything else. I think if I had a less adept voice teacher initially, I probably would have been assigned baritone stuff because of my speaking range. I think my speaking range is artificially low. Unlike yours, Brad, I don't understand how you were ever a tenor. I think that you... I'm sure you were fantastic. But it feels like your speaking voice is naturally in this kind of range. And my speaking voice, I artificially bring it down here because my dad is a bass. Most of my friends growing up were lower voiced guys. So I think if I was speaking, if you listen to the old recordings of like Pavarotti, of Delmonico, all these guys, they all talk up here. Like this is like where their voice actually sits when they're singing. And I think if I spoke up here normally, I might have a healthier vocal lifestyle in the end, but oh well, like this is where I speak. The perceptive thing about Neil Tracy was that he recognized very quickly that I was actually a tenor, even though I have a low speaking voice. And the high notes have not always been the easiest for me, but I'm a lyric tenor. I'm not a leggero kind of tenor, so that's kind of the deal. But it reminds me of a friend of mine who I, of course, will not name, who I think is also a tenor, but works as baritone. And he tried to be a tenor for a few months in his late 20s, I guess. He tried to make the transition. And I talked to him a few weeks after that little period of it, and he said, it's hard. And I'm like, yeah, it is hard. It doesn't mean you aren't a tenor. It just means that being a tenor is hard, much harder than being a baritone. Probably still all my baritone friends, but it's the weirdest voice type that there is.
That's why tenors get paid the big bucks, because they actually have to do some sweating on stage. And right. Everybody is looking out for that schadenfreude moment, waiting for the tenor to crack wide open on a high note.
Exactly.
There's, always that fear going on in the mind of the performer. Tell us a little bit about this concert. What are we going to hear you sing for us?
Well, it's a lot of Puccini hits, which I am happy to get to, because Recondita Armonia is the opening sing for me on the concert. I think there's an orchestral prelude first, but it's the opening tenor aria from Tosca. Mm-hmm. It is one of the very first things that I tried to sing that when I was working with Neil Tracy when I was in high school, and this will be my first experience singing it with an orchestra, because I've sung it many times. I sang it in a few competitions when I was younger, and I've sung it a fair amount, but never with orchestra. So it'll be a lovely experience to sing it with orchestra in this lovely cathedral space, and that's particularly appropriate because, of course, the opening scene of Tosca takes place in a church.
Yeah.
And Cavaradossi is painting a fresco or whatever kind of decorative painting in the church.
Typical tenor description. Hey, he's painting a painting, whatever. But listen to me, I'm singing a high A here, right? I have to say,
what it's about.
It's a great sort of vocal beginning for the program, but also that's a really hard aria. I've sung it myself in the opera several times, and it's sustained. It's right up there. Not to make you any more nervous than you than you may be already.
No. It's those Fs. You're exactly right. The passaggio, it hangs out. The passaggio is what we talk about in tenor vocalism as the passageway, the hallway between the two different types of voices, two different types of vocal production, and that's what you have to navigate super carefully in order to maintain your ability to sing the high notes when you get there, and maintain a pretty sounding instrument. Yeah. And Puccini just nails away on those Fs, which is square in the middle of the passaggio. It's like the first second-ish note of the passaggio, and one of the hardest for me always to get in the right place. You can't open it too wide. You can't narrow it too closed. It's got to be just
has to be in the Goldilocks zone.
That's right.
Well, right away, how the rest of the opera is going to go once you get into that aria. But
there you go.
You're singing a few other arias and a duet as well. Tell us some of the other stuff we're going to hear.
Yeah, so I'm singing with a baritone who Merwin and Mickey have to let me know who it is. I don't know who the baritone is on the concert.
We're unveiling the baritone, unboxing the baritone at the concert, so you'll have to wait.
Oh, wow, that makes it seem like some sort of Instagram moment. We're doing a baritone unboxing. It's Louis Ledesma.
Yeah. You know Louis?
I know him from ages and ages ago. Yes, I sang a Beethoven 9 with him in Philadelphia many years ago, and he's married to the longtime coach at AVA as well. So I'm glad to be able to sing with him, and we're singing together. He's going to sing Sharpless, and we're going to sing the opening scene of Butterfly. Madame Butterfly, which is, one of the most lovable characters Puccini ever wrote for the tenor, is Pinkerton. I sang the role, so I had to figure out. I'm not one to play a bad person who knows he's bad and just wants to be bad, and mustache twirling kind of guy, because he does have an aria that Puccini wrote later to make him a little bit more sympathetic. But it doesn't really make any sense if he's just all evil all the time. Why would he feel bad all of a sudden? So to me, Pinkerton in this scene, in this opening scene of Butterfly, he's explaining how everything works to Sharpless, and I think what he's all about here is being a young mansplainer, and he's like, I know exactly how everything's working here. But anyway, yes, Pinkerton is showing up in Japan and believes that all of a sudden he understands how this whole society works and how this whole relationship works and how basically glorified prostitution works. And he's explaining it all to Sharpless and being like, listen, everybody, they say it's marriage here. We're going to get married, but I can dissolve the marriage contract anytime I want. And he believes, in my mind, that everybody knows that this is not real, that it's not a real marriage, that it's not real, like this is just how prostitution works, and he doesn't really think he's taking advantage of Cho-Cho-san here. He thinks that she's in on it, in the sense that she understands also how this system works, and that obviously they're just there for however long he's there, days or weeks or whatever, not for a lifetime. And so I think that he's still not a great guy. but at least it makes sense that he would feel sorry when he finds out at the end that she was actually obsessed with him, or not obsessed with him, but believing that this was a genuine relationship that they were starting and getting into.
Now that we have a wonderful picture of tenors in our mind, I'm looking over at Merwin and Mickey, who have yet to say anything. Now, you have anything that you want to talk to Zach about while you draw your doodle there on the paper, Merwin?
I was just drawing a diabolical tenor. It was all good.
A picture of Zach. If only we could show it over the radio.
Oh, it's such a great visual medium that I think it's actually really exciting for us to be able to kind of work with you again. And then, I think the last time you were here was...
My wife and I came to sing Traviata.
Right. Yeah, that was amazing.
Let me ask you a question. When you say that was amazing and you're sitting there playing your violin, are you listening to the singer? How does that work for an instrumentalist? Are they like, there goes the singer again? Or do you get kind of wrapped up in that to the point where it may even distract you from what you're supposed to be doing?
I have to say it's very, very different when you're comparing the orchestration parts for, say, Bellini or Donizetti with Puccini. Yeah. Puccini, it feels very chamber music, like you're often doing counter melodies to the vocal melody, and you're very much aware of what the singer is doing, but you're having to be, you're also having to assert your own musical line. With Donizetti, not so much. The orchestration part is much more, it's much more almost scaffolding. So you're really very much attuned to, on a second by second basis, what the singer is doing, because you want to place your scaffolding at the appropriate place.
Well, it's interesting what you say about orchestration in terms of what Puccini does, because you may have the counter melody, but the singer, and Zach, you can verify this as well as you, Mickey, those are some thick orchestrations. There's a lot of doubling that goes on in the orchestra. And some people have said, Puccini is harder to sing than Wagner sometimes because you need a big voice that cuts through that heavy orchestra. Zach, do you agree with that sentiment?
Well, you need an unusually sensitive conductor, I think, because, everybody has different sized voices. These enormous, voices that we expect from American singers a lot these days is because of the hugeness of the houses. And if you look at the size of opera houses in Europe, and where Puccini was writing, the Met is twice as large, Houston is very, very large, but even, the largest possible house is about the same size as your average regional house. Now, the Valentine is sort of nicely in a more reasonable, traditional European opera house size. So that's one advantage for Toledo right away versus a lot of other regional places in America.
Wait, you mentioned Toledo again. There we go. Okay, go ahead.
That's right.
Carry on.
It'll be fun to sing in the church as well, in the cathedral. But in terms of Puccini, I haven't tried to sing Wagner, so I can't really compare the two of them. But it's even more important to look at the full score if you're singing a Puccini thing. So because I'm singing Recondita Armonia, the Tosca aria with orchestra for the first time, I was looking at the full score. And there is a whole middle section of that's all double with the cello. But it's interesting because it's double with the cello, but nothing really else. So it's not thick. It's just cello doubled, which is, important to keep in mind in terms of you can't be too push and pulley if you only have two rehearsals with the orchestra. You gotta just kind of get on the same page and sing together, and not get too jazzy with it. But that to me, hopefully in the moment will feel supportive, and I'll feel less like I need to create all of the music myself, and it's more like we're all doing it together, which is, that's a little bit of a relief vocally, hopefully, even though you're trying to get your voice out over that orchestra.
Well, this is sort of like your tryout stage. You're safe here. You're among friends and family and people that want to see you and hear you sing. It's a great place to try something that may be a little bit new for you. So we're glad to hear that's the case. Mickey, what's you're a singer, you're a soprano. You sing a lot of new music, I know, but what's your experience with music of Puccini?
Well, a fair amount of lip syncing at home, but
while doing the laundry or the dishes.
Oh yeah, always. Yeah. No, I definitely agree with Zach. I think that the joy of a lot of that repertoire is getting to ride the wave and find and explore colors and collaboration when you have those moments that, you are written with the cello, getting to look at what exactly the text is there and why the cello is the choice to duet with in that moment. It's a joy. It's so fun.
Well, then also at the very end, you have, the last aria, the final aria, E lucevano stelle, and there's a lot of cello and clarinet going on there. The orchestra has a real solo spotlight as well. And there has to be something that ties it in, I think, to the beginning and to the end, right? And the story that happens in between. Oh, there's a soprano also, yeah.
Oh, yeah, her.
That's what
Yeah. Yeah, well, let's do my quiz, which I have prepared in the vein of the Metropolitan Opera radio quiz, which I just did this past weekend. Sometimes they come to you and they do a vocal ID where they drop the needle and they play a little bit and you have to say who it is, right? Now, I'm going to tell you the opera is Turandot, the aria is Nessun Dorma, and usually we hear like a bunch of high B naturals together, from different tenors and try to guess which is which. But we're just going to hear the opening phrase, Nessun Dorma, and see if we can identify these 10 tenors. Now, I'm going to go ahead and read you the names of the tenors in alphabetical order. This is not the order that I'm going to play them in. But just so you know, Piotr Bichala, who I saw over the weekend, he sang a wonderful Lohengrin. Jussi Bierling, Franco Corelli, Mario Delmonico, Nicola Gedda, Giuseppe Giacomini, Jonas Kaufmann, Alfredo Kraus, Mario Lanza, and finally, Zach's favorite, Luciano Pavarotti. Okay, so those are the 10 tenors. What I'm going to do is play them one at a time, and you figure out who it is. We're not going to say who it is until we have played them all, and then we'll go back in order, right?
So I think this is a little bit unfair.
We were trying to spell Piotr, and I got slow. Can we go back?
That's okay.
So what I think we should do is that Mickey and I should team up against Zach.
Okay.
And see how
Zach and I get to team up, or we go separate?
Well, no. You see the answers in front of you. I don't feel like that's extremely
hard.
Also, you made the quiz.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Okay. All right. Here's your first one. Let me see if I can get that to work. Okay. The first one. Okay, I'll give you a clue for each one of these.
Read your handwriting, Merwin.
The person we just heard was probably best known in the role of Otello. He was also a heavy smoker, died of cancer. I don't think it was lung cancer, though. Okay, here's your second one.
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma.
Now, this person recorded 43 different operas throughout his career, the last one when he was 70 years old. Okay.
Oh, okay. Hold on. We need to make a big change.
You're having a timeout?
Our person is obviously not correct. Okay.
All right, number 3, we're moving on. Okay, so that person had a stage name that they were famous as. Their real name was Alfredo Cocozza. That was their real name, although they went by a few other names during their life. We know them by their stage name. Okay, here's the next one. Who was the star of a major Hollywood flop? Okay, that one should be fairly easy.
So, Zach, are you 4 for 4?
And now the next one.
I don't think so.
The next one, this performer performed operas in French, Russian, German, Italian, English, Czech, Swedish, and Latin. That should give it away right there.
Yeah.
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma.
Okay.
So you can't see this on the radio, but basically our teamwork has just devolved into elegant shrugs.
Just drawing a blank.
We're just like, well, there's no way.
Hey, we still got 5 to go. All right.
this.
This next singer started out as a lyric tenor and considered quitting opera because their career wasn't going anywhere. They were in their mid-20s at the time. And then they found a teacher who taught them how to sing dramatically, and it became one of the premier dramatic singers of our time. Here it is.
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma.
Okay, the next one is short, balding. I should say was short, balding, and he also wore thick glasses in contrast to his persona on stage as one of the great dramatic voices of all time. Here we go.
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma.
It's so interesting to hear these different voices, right?
Yeah, I would say I should mute you for the hints, except I do have the handicap of being on the phone, and I feel like the fidelity is making me question. I'm pretty good now, but the first 3 I was like, anyway.
It's
the
okay.
hints are what's putting it over the top here.
It's okay. Okay, here's a hint for the next one. They just had a triumph at the Metropolitan Opera in an opera by Richard Wagner.
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma.
And I actually was in the house for that performance. Anyway, not the Nessun Dorma, but for the Wagner opera. All right, only 2 left to go. The next one was a heavy alcoholic throughout his entire life. He's said to have started drinking to combat stage fright. Regardless, one of the great voices of all time. Here it is.
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma.
You can hear from the crackling, it's a little bit earlier. And our final one, speaking of stage fright, this tenor suffered from debilitating stage fright, often canceled. In fact, he was the one that canceled, and a young tenor named Placido Domingo took his place and started his career at the Met. Here it is.
Nessun dorma, nessun dorma.
Okay, we've had 10 tenors. You going to sing it for us, Zach?
Yeah.
Okay, the first one.
I don't know.
I'm just going to go through and tell you who they were, okay?
Oh, that'll be fun.
Yeah,
And
we like
this is
this.
I think we did well. Yeah.
the honor
There's
system.
there's one person I'm missing, and
Only
I'm
one?
Me
wondering-
too.
Well,
it's only the second one that I think I'm questionable on.
yeah, it was a little hard to figure that one out.
I just forget the name. I forget the name of. If I had written down, I didn't write down the 10 names you gave me. If it was process of elimination, I would be able to tell you.
Okay. Well, I can give the 10 names again in alphabetical order, and then we'll go, and I'll tell you who was who.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so Piotr Bichala, Jussi Björling, Franco Corelli, Mario Domenico, Nicola Guetta, Giuseppe Giacomini, Jonas Kaufmann, Alfredo Kraus, Mario Lanza, and Luciano Pavarotti.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Yeah.
Can you-
Those are the
I got it.
tenors.
All right.
Could you slow down just
All right.
a little
Nope.
bit? Okay.
Could you give me the name of between Nikolai Guetta and Jonas Kaufmann?
That's Giuseppe Giacomini.
Yes.
Let me go through. Let me just read the 1 through 10 and see how you can tell me whether it's right. You got your old buzzer. You can just do the buzzer.
Oh.
Okay.
One
This is a
wrong.
All right.
brave
This is a
soul.
brave man.
Go for it. Go for it.
All right, I'm going to start. I'm the least secure about the beginning, but we're going to start with. Is it Delmonico first?
Oh, I got that too.
Delmonico.
We got that too,
Yeah.
Merwin. Yeah, Knuckles.
Knuckles.
What do you say for number
Then we
2?
have Mario Lanza.
No,
Oh,
you had those two mixed up. The numbers 2 and 3.
so is that Krauss then?
That's Alfredo Kraus.
I had Kraus as 3.
I had Allison.
Well, I took voice lessons with Alfredo Kraus. That was literally the loudest voice I've ever heard. He sat right next to me and sang a high C in my face. And famously had a very lyric voice, but did it cut through everything.
I had Kraus as 3 and random tenor whose name you just gave me as 2.
Yes. So who was the other name that you had, Zach?
I switched Lanza and Krauss.
Yeah, Alfredo Kraus, Mario Lanza. Yeah. Okay. Now, if you didn't get number 4.
No, obviously 4 is Luciano Pavarotti.
Yeah.
5 is Nicolai Gedda.
Right.
6 is Jonas Kaufmann.
Yeah. I'm just going to keep hitting this button.
7 is Giuseppe Giacomini.
Yeah.
8 is Piotr Basawa. 9 is Björling. And 10 is Franco Corelli. So,
I have to pull this out again because you're definitely the winner of the quiz. Did you guys get any of that?
I drew a flower.
Well, we know that you're a former florist from your previous appearances here on Symphony Lab. Zach, that was pretty good. I do have
my other anecdote I wanted to tell about Björling. It is sad how he was pretty debilitated by alcoholism for his life. But evidently, Robert Merrill was drafted by whoever was running the Met at that time. I forget who the intendant was, to go find him before a performance one time, which was a matinee, I think. But Robert Merrill knew to look for him at the bar that he liked to go to and found him and took him from the bar to the Met stage to do his matinee performance of whatever it was. I don't remember, but like that
Puccini's Messa di Gloria. I can imagine.
So you're going to tell us the name of your favorite bar, Zach? Your favorite Toledo bar?
Dirty Bird.
I have the Dirty Bird. There you go.
Good
Love the
choice.
Dirty Bird.
Shout out to the Dirty Bird. Okay, here is your extra credit question. If you can get this, more power to you. There's a hint in the language that this tenor is singing, but you should be able to get it.
Keiner schlafe, keiner schlafe.
Now, I consider him kind of the Marilyn Monroe of opera because he died very young. He was just 35 when he died and was at the beginning of what was going to be an incredible career. The story is that he was at a party, and speaking of alcohol, they got a little soused, and somebody, as a joke, tied his shoelaces together, and he fell down the stairs. That's the story that I got from my sources in the opera mafia. Any guesses?
I fell down the stairs. That's Wunderlich, right?
Yeah, Fritz Wunderlich. So you are definitely right up there. Congratulations to you.
Give that hint. I think I probably would have gotten it just because, but I wouldn't have guessed. I'm sure he never sang that role. He was a very light voice kind of guy.
Yeah. But he did record a lot of arias. He did record a lot of stuff that he didn't have the chance to do on stage. He may have, you know, planned it somewhere down the road, but we never got the opportunity to hear that. So, Mickey and Merwin, you've been through this esoteric tenor quiz. What are your thoughts?
I am just so impressed and grateful at how wonderful you are at that quiz, Zach. That was so good.
That was impressive.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, we got a little nerdy tenor-wise.
Nerdadum.
No, lots of hints.
Hints always help. Okay. The more you know. Let's talk a little bit about what makes a singer great, because we've just heard 10, 11 fantastic singers, and they're all completely different. I mean, what qualities do you look for, Zach and Merwin and Mickey, when you hear, let's say, a tenor, when you hear that wonderful, magnificent voice coming at you? What are you looking for?
Well, I guess I'll start.
I've been monopolizing too much. Somebody else. Okay, go ahead.
Well, Brad was pointing at me, so I feel like I have to start. For tenors, I look for vulnerability. I feel like there's something about that range which is able to pierce the heart, and I kind of like it's something that I want a tenor to kind of live right on the knife's edge of be moving and being so moved that they themselves can't quite be in control.
Yeah,
I'm a big Di Stefano fan.
I was just, the whole time that you were saying that, I was thinking Giuseppe Di Stefano.
Yeah,
it sounds like he's describing him.
That's my favorite tenor.
Yeah,
and just that's what I listen for.
Well, what's your go-to, Mickey?
Well, I think just from a teaching standpoint, too, the folks that have that are so comfortable in their facility, and they know exactly what colors are natural to them. So often, the singers that I gravitate towards know their instrument, and they know their exact favorite parts of, like, a really well-informed singer is usually my favorite to watch.
Yeah. Zach, Franco Corelli or Luciano Pavarotti? If you only could choose one.
Well, it'd have to be Pavarotti. I think he has a little bit more.
No,
variety.
Franco Corelli is the winner. Franco Corelli. I'm glad that you agree. Yeah. No, I see where you're coming from.
I guess that's on the material you're talking about, of course. But I mean, I to me, what I listen for in the tenor that I get a lot from Pavarotti specifically is so much intention in just the sound of the voice. Like he I don't know, my first voice teacher dissed Pavarotti for being a bad actor. But if you just sit there and listen to him singing, like, to me, he tells the whole story just with the sound of his voice, and how he pronounces the words, but just like, even just the tone of his voice. And that is something that is only possible if you're like sort of a savant, or if you've spent a lot of time working on your technique, that you can sublimate the artifice that's required to generate the sound that can be heard of an orchestra, and then like not focus on any of that and just focus on the meaning of the music and the artistic intention of what's happening underneath the music. And it's that, to me, it's a pinnacle for me in a live performance, a live recording that exists of Pavarotti singing Lucia with Beverly Sills, I think in Mexico City. And I listened to that the first time I did Lucia in Toledo. Yay! That was my go-to listening for learning it. Not that I listened to it to learn the notes, but just it was my favorite interpretation of it, because Pavarotti just comes out there and everything that he sings makes sense and is holistically like informing the audience of what's happening, and it just feels genuine in a way that is unlike everybody else to me. Now, I will say that I just have spent a lot of time with him, and for me, finding that in other tenors is entirely possible, even ones that I initially dismissed. Like Björling, I never understood Björling at all. Like, I was like, why do people like this? This sounds ridiculous. I think it's dumb. And then I heard his live recording of Romeo and Juliet, which I'll be returning to Toledo to sing next season with my wife, which I'm very excited about. Yay!
I'm going to employ you as my new soundboard from now on, Zach.
Sorry for the prompting. And, I listened to that live recording of him from the Met, and I was like, now I understand completely, and now I love Björling. He's up there in my top three, tenors, because it makes sense to me all of a sudden how that directness and that genuineness comes through the way he makes that sound. And it's just thrilling and exciting to listen to him sing Romeo, especially.
Well, one of the things that we haven't talked about too much is the fact that these voices also have identifying characteristics. I mean, you can listen to Pavarotti and know that it's Pavarotti, or you listen to, somebody like Caruso, and you know that it's Caruso. And that reminds me of Dorothy Caruso's statement that U.C. Bjorling sounded the most like her husband back in the day when she heard him sing and perform live. But, this whole idea of instantly recognizable voices, I certainly can think that way when I hear somebody from the past, but is that still going on these days? Is that an important part of what you're trying to do or what your colleagues are trying to do on the stage? What are your thoughts on that, Zach?
Well, you listen to Kaufman, I mean, it's certainly, there's still a cachet about it. To the extent that, I really respect Kaufman. I think he's a fantastic musician. I think he's really figured out how to make that sound consistently and well. And I saw him sing Tosca at the Met and was very excited by his Vittoria and how he is on stage. But I think that it feels a little cultivated to me. It feels a little artificial in the end, the way that he darkens his voice. It doesn't feel like it's his actual voice basically on the staff or below the passaggio. When he gets above the passaggio, like that's probably how he should definitely sing. Like I think if he had maintained the weird darkness thing with his high notes above the staff, then it wouldn't be sustainable.
Yeah,
but he sings like with perfect ringing technique up there, and then in the staff he does this very, very strange sort of overdarkening thing that I think is an effect. But it does succeed in making him have a distinctive voice because it's very recognizable when you do that. And there's something to be said for that, obviously.
Absolutely.
And I can't hold it against him. I think it's a little strange to listen to as a professional singer who works on it myself. But like I can't. Yeah, that's. I definitely sympathize with the notion of wanting to sound unique and that the value of sounding unique, because there is a lot of generalized singing these days. I don't know if it's more than usual in the sense of the history of opera, if it's typical, because we only remember the singers that were unique and great. Like there were plenty of singers who have been forgotten in the old days, just as like there's lots of singers working today who, maybe we won't remember because they sound like everybody else. So I can't compare with the old times versus today, but I can say that I do see value in sounding unique, and I hope that I can do it in a way that is also genuine and not any artificial sounding at all. But that's a high aspiration.
Yay! Yay again. Well, if Jonas Kaufmann is listening, we'll give him your number, okay?
I'm sorry. I really like listening to him sing, so I cannot be a critic.
Zach Borichevsky, our guest today, wonderful tenor, is singing this concert back in Toledo, Zach. This is happening Sunday, March 26th. It's 4:00 p.m. at Rosary Cathedral. Puccini's Messa di Gloria, which we didn't get a chance to talk about too much. And also before that, you're singing some wonderful arias from the Puccini cinematic universe. We're also going to hear the Symphonic Prelude, one of his student works. Speaking of student works, I mean, he was still a teenager when he wrote the Messa di Gloria.
Yeah, I thought that was his like graduation project or something from conservatory.
Something like that.
I didn't read that recently. I was I was remembering that from undergrad, so I could be wrong.
Well, if you listen to another piece that he wrote for orchestra called the Capriccio Sinfonico, or the Symphonic Caprice, it actually has a quotation of La Bohème. I mean, before he wrote the opera, the whole beginning of it, that da-da-da-da, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, that all comes from the Symphonic Caprice, and he later ported it into La Bohème many years later. So it's an interesting little musical tidbit there. Again, the concert is Sunday, March 26th, 4:00 p.m. at Rosary Cathedral. Zach Borichevsky, singers from Bowling Green State University, Musica Puccini, all conducted by Giordano Bellincampi. You can find more information at their website, toledosymphony.com, or call up the box office at 419-246-8000. Zach, thank you for making time for us today, and we look forward to having you back here in Toledo.
I look forward to being back. Thank you for having me.
This program is a production of WGTE Public Media in collaboration with our sponsor, the Toledo Symphony, with generous support from the Rita Barber Kern Foundation. You can download episodes as a podcast by going to our website at wgte.org/lab. You can also subscribe to us through your podcast app of choice, including Apple, Google, and Spotify podcasts. Don't forget to check out all the upcoming events at the Symphony by visiting their website at toledosymphony.com and their various social media outlets on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can find the TSO streaming platform online at stream.artstoledo.com. My thanks to Merwin Sue, Mickey Emsch, and of course to our special phone guest, tenor Zach Borichevsky. I'm Brad Cresswell. You've been listening to Toledo Symphony Lab from FM 91.